What's up, guys? All right, we're going into spring bear season, and so no better time to do a gear dump, a gear review specific to spring bear. We're very close, excited to get out there and probably be post-holing a bit of snow this year with all the snow we have. But what I thought I'd do today is top to bottom, I'm going to empty everything out of my bag. It's ready to go. I'll give you the weight of it and talk about the what and why I'm bringing these pieces. So I think as you can see, we're gonna we'll start with this bag. This is a new bag for me. I've been running this a lot this winter. Started out in January running it on an actual hunt. Prior to that, I had been just running it around the neighborhood with sandbags in it on the frame. And this is the Initial Ascent 8K, they call it. Great bag. This company has a frame that, for whatever reason, this thing just carries weight extremely well. So it got my attention. You know, I'm getting older, and I like it when it feels lighter on my back versus heavier. And so this bag kind of sucked me in, and I've been running it a lot and all my daily training. And then again, I took it on a coos hunt and got a little bit more use out of it then. But it's going with me in the bear woods this year, this spring. And as you can see, this is a giant bag, and I am a big fan of larger bags. You know, I ran a 7900 for 5-6 years, and that was great. It was one of the more larger size bags from Stone Glacier, and I love that bag. But this bag is even bigger. They call it an 8K. I don't know exactly where it falls, but I think it's in the range of 8,700 or 8,900 cubic inches of space in this bag. So there's a lot to like for me, especially, you know, this size bag is not for everyone. You don't need it if you're not running long, extended 10, 12 day, 14 day trips. Last year I had a 16-day trip, and food gets pretty scarce. Food is bulky. It's not just heavy, but more than that is it's bulky. And that's where the extra space in a enormous pack really helps. If you're hiking in somewhere, you know, you need every ounce of space generally, especially for food. Combo that with a lot of the areas that we spring bear hunt, where we bring a raft. And not just one, but each guy is generally bringing his own raft. So the beauty of this bag is, number one, there's oars inside of it. It's so big, I can break these oars down, and they're literally inside of this bag. I keep my rifle on my right side, my spotter and tripod on the left side. I'm gonna go ahead and just take a couple quick things off of here. So a couple of the features that I really like about this bag is I like the spotter pocket on the side here. You know, this is where my spotter just slips right in there with ease. This thing will hold about as big of a spotter as you can imagine. Even a spotter that a Brady Miller type guy would use, like the Hubble telescope style. Right next to that, really easy to slip on my tripod and then counterbalance it on the other side with my rifle. So plenty of straps, good length in straps, which I really, really like. And then one of the really cool features about this bag is the load shelf. So they've designed this to be extremely easy to utilize the load shelf. A couple of snaps, pull it off the top, undo your lid, and this thing folds right off, and you're right to your load shelf. Really unique design to it. I love the frame that they built into this thing. It's this carbon fiber frame. Here, it's much more of a rigid, more of a stiffer frame, which if you're somebody that hauls heavy weight, which most guys do these days, if you're a backcountry hunter, that's where this particular frame comes in extremely handy. This more rigid, stiff frame, it just carries weight extremely well. One other cool feature is it's got these hooks on here. I think some guys might use this as a hook for a rifle. There are some guys that will actually hang a quarter right here off of this on both sides. If you're a tough guy and you want to prove to your buddies how tough you are, put a quarter on both sides, fill in the middle with meat or whatever. It's just a cool little feature that they've built into this frame. So again, this is the bag I'm going to be running this year. 8K from Initial Ascent. And I'm going to go ahead and empty the contents of this, and we'll get to talking about the gear that I'm taking this spring. All right, so now that we've got everything laid out on this table here, we're just going to go through it one piece at a time. I'm going to go ahead and start with this little pile on the right side here. It's mostly clothing, things that I'm going to be taking with me on pretty near every spring bear trip this year. Off the top, we've got gaiters. It's an important piece, you know. These Peaks gaiters have been great. I've been using these for years now. They are about as rock solid as you're gonna find in a gaiter. So, real good piece of gear. This next piece is something that I do not take on every trip. It's a set of Chota waders. If I'm going to a certain spot where I've got a couple of low creek crossings, I typically don't pack these up onto the hill much, but these can come in really handy right out of the gates crossing some creeks. Now, if this is a hunt that I'm not gonna bomb in miles or whatever, I might keep these in my backpack and use them. You know how springs are in the, or creeks are in the spring. You know, they're just up and you have to cross them all the time, it seems like, especially with bear hunts. So these come with me sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes they make sense. All right, raft, another piece that I feel like this is one of the biggest pieces that sets my gear apart from a lot of the other hunts that I do. In the springtime, oftentimes we're hunting drainages with, you know, large creeks or rivers running through the bottoms, and we often see bears back and forth. So without this piece of gear, we can't cross when we want to, when we need to. So this is a big piece of my gear that helps me find more success. This is a Caribou 5-pound alpaca raft, and I've used this thing for years, and it has come in very handy on a lot of trips. All right, we're gonna go through some of the clothing. A couple of these pieces, it's kind of like a game time decision, you know, depending on what the forecast is and the weather. You know, if I had my choice when it comes to my outer layer, I'm gonna always go with a Grumman down puffy jacket, which is what this is here. Now, last year I found myself, we just happened to have an extremely wet spring, and Stone Glacier came out with this Cirque jacket, which is a synthetic insulation layer, and I lived in this for the spring, thankfully, because we were getting rained on every day, or sleeted on, or snowed on. So this is something I would take if my 10-day forecast has nothing but rain. I'm gonna pack this over this Stone Glacier Grumman. So again, make that decision at the trailhead. Keep on with the insulation layers. This kit sack has my puffy pants. These are the Grumman puffy pants from Stone Glacier. I'm in these things a lot. You know, with bear hunts, you'll find you are glassing a ton. You know, it seems like 90% of the day has just been glassing large amounts of country. Just never know what you're going to get weather-wise, and we're under the tarp often, and we end up crawling in our insulation layers quite a bit. So I've used these Stone Glacier puffy pants for a long time. They come in real handy as well. And I don't take a like a long underwear type for bottoms. I wear the pants that I wear, which is the de Havilland light, Stone Glacier de Havilland light. And then if it's really cold, I put these on. I don't use base layers on the bottom half very often. Base layers on the top, I run this Chinook Merino from Stone. This is a great piece right here. I love it. Hat, this is just a rag wool hat that I lose beanies quite often, so I just go with a lightweight merino or a rag wool. You can get these at I get this at Murdoch's. It's kind of like a feed and tack store, but it's cheap and warmer than a lot of other hats. My outer layer is going to be oftentimes this hippie powder hoodie from Duckworth. I love this thing. It's great. I'm wearing it here. I packed this thing. It's heavier than it looks. This is all merino, and it's a company here in Bozeman that builds them. This thing regulates heat really well, and it's great for even hot weather. It's really good for cold weather, but this is something that I'm usually packing on a lot of my hunts, including spring bear trips. Rain gear. So the difference in my rain gear set from spring to fall is I always take the bottoms on my spring trips. We just tend to have a lot of rain in the springtime, and oftentimes we're en route to go find a bear, you know, brushy type conditions through the bottoms, through the creeks. And so I will pack the bottoms. This is a set of M5 Stone Glacier rain gear. I don't generally take the bottoms on a lot of my fall hunts, but I do take them on the spring hunts. So this is pants and jacket. I've got the Ram merino wool socks. I always take one extra pair for a 10-day hunt. As far as gloves go, another kind of a trailhead decision. So Stone Glacier's crushing it on the gloves. They just came out with this big lineup. They got this lightweight merino that I've been using a little bit. They've got this kind of a midweight. They call it the grapple. And this is what I'm running this year. Been using them on a bunch of my hikes, you know, off season, but it's going to be a first year for me on these, as well as these altimeter mitts. These things are extremely lightweight. They're way lighter than my my leather mitts that I'm very accustomed to taking. It's got a waterproof shell on it and a very beefed up insulation mitt underneath. So long days of scouting or glassing, sitting on perches, wind, all that, these things are going to be money. I probably wouldn't pack them if they were a whole lot heavier, but these things are extremely light. Okay. Sleep system from the ground up. So on the ground, I don't usually run a floor in my TP. I just have this. This is actually from Seek Outside. It's almost a Tyvek type piece. It's really kind of a thick piece, which I really like about it. So when you lay this down in an area where there's pine needles or some thorns or just pumice rock or whatever, and you run your hands across it, you don't get those sharp edges poking through like you do on just a typical sil nylon ground tarp. So I use this a lot. Up from that, you got air mattress. I haven't found anything better than the old Neo Air Thermarest. This is the X Lite. I've gone back and forth from the X Therm to the X Lite. This thing is great. I think it's 15, 16, 17 ounces, somewhere in there. But this thing is really, really worked well. I'm a big fan of that particular mattress. There's a lot of them out there, but that one's worked. Stood the test of time. Pillow. Never was really one into pillows, but this is just a Dyneema, I think Z-Packs makes this. Dyneema stuff sack. You just use it for a waterproof layer. Turn it inside out. It's got the little felt on one side, And what I do is I just stuff my puffy gear in here, and it's a nice wide pillow. Sleeping bag. So this year we've got a new piece to my kit, and this is going to be a Peaks. It says top secret. This is going to be a Peaks bag. It's a 15-degree bag, down bag, very lightweight. There's been a lot of time and effort put into this bag, and we're going to, again, keep testing it this spring onto these spring hunts. So this is what's going to be in my kit this year. Just go into the shelter. We are going to be using the new Peaks Solitude. I'm not actually sure how many person they call it, but to me it's a 2-person plus stove. So we have a lot of trips where we'll bring, it's just me and my buddy, and this is the teepee that we're gonna run. So this, 2 guys plus the stove, this thing is legit, very lightweight. It's got some new cool features to it. This trekking pole system that really helps in those real windy days. Parked on a ridge in bear country, sometimes you get some pretty rough nights with the wind. And this stabilization piece that they have, that they've used in, you can see this one behind me up here, trekking poles cut across both sides, and it really stabilizes that thing. So it's legit. So that's what's going this year. Glassing pad, never leave home without that. This is my glassing pad. A lot of uses for this darn thing. We use this as a backrest for shooting. Kind of goes like this, and super stable, super stiff, works really well. And then obviously, again, spring bear is mostly glassing and cruising and looking for bears. So we're on that thing all the time. Let's see, let's look at another shelter piece that you will never find me going into the on a spring hunt without a tarp. So this is a Seek Outside DST in here. I think it's an 8x10 tarp, and it's got everything included. It's ready to go. I've got stakes in here. All the guy lines are attached, so it's a quick setup. Those storms come in the spring quick, and so we like to just get under that thing so we can just keep glassing and not get soaked. So this comes in handy. I think last year, I don't even know how many times we were underneath it, but it was a lot. And if you don't have one, I would highly recommend having at least like an 8x10-ish size tarp in your pack. Let's look at some of the power items that are in this little kit sack here. Obviously, I'm still using the InReach Mini. Have no problems with that. Thing's great. If you're a married man, that's something you definitely want, some type of a communication device to, reach out to your wife and let her know that you're good. Steri pen. Big fan. I run this ultralight. It's super small. This thing has worked extremely well for years. There's one trick to this thing I've noticed in these latest versions. I broke mine. My original was phenomenal, but I broke it, got a new one, and I've noticed the latest versions do have a little bit of an issue with colder weather. So you get down at that freezing mark, I've found that it doesn't want to turn on. So what I got to do is slip it in my pocket, warm it up just a little bit, and then it's fine and it works. But just one little trick with the Steri pen, if you find that it's not working and it's just lighting up red on a real cold night or whatever, just warm it up a little bit, slip it in your pocket. Boot dryers, sometimes I bring them, sometimes I don't. These are from Graxaw, a genius little way of keeping your boots dry. It's basically just runs off a power bank, small attachment. We elevate our boots up in the teepee at night, try to get them up on a tripod, get them elevated where all that heat is from our fire, and that hot air just gets pushed right down into the boot, and got a nice dry boot by morning. So I don't bring those all the time. I don't tend to get a lot, my feet wet very often, so it's actually pretty rare that I take them, but I do hunt with buddies that always seem to have wet, sweaty feet, and so that's a big must to have these boot dryers. And if you're running a teepee with a stove setup, which we always do in the springtime, that's a game changer for sure. I got a Peaks headlight, the Duo, red light, white light. A lot of functions on this. Thing's legit. It lasts a very long time. They nailed it with this one. It's a great light. Power bank, running this Poseidon Dark Energy, 10,000 milliamp, and then my cords. Unfortunately, I still have multiple cords. I've got one for the USB-C stuff, and then my phone. So when you burn through your power bank up there, we're up there, a lot of these trips we build are 10 days plus. You need an extra source of power unless you want to be packing 2 or often 3 of these things. So what we've found is we bring this little 3-panel solar charger. It's pretty simple. Plug it in when you leave camp in the morning, and usually by day's end, even on the not brightest of days, sun-wise, you can still fill a bank pretty easily with this little 3-panel. I think it's in that 1 pound range, so it's not too bad. But again, if you're burning through a lot of power, and these days it seems like there's a lot of pieces here that require power. If you're running maps a lot on your phone, you just know you burn through power pretty frequently. So these things have been a great find. This is a Rhino Tough. I used to use an Anchor, but they quit building them. And this Rhino Tough has been pretty good, very comparable to the Anchor that I used to run. And it's a great way to just not have to ever worry about you're getting low, with your mapping, or even worse, your GPS, your communications. So that's the power. One piece that always stays in Spring Bear is obviously a distress call. Phelps is making some killer distress calls now. This is a fawn distress, got calf distress. They've got multiple calls, but this thing is legit. Always stays around my neck when I'm on these spring bear hunts. Cooker. Got a little titanium Peaks spoon. Cook system. I'm always fiddle farting around with different cook systems, and I think I've finally settled. I ran the Jetboil Minimo for years and loved it, but there are other options now that are kind of overtaking what I used to run. So to shave off, 4, 5, 6 ounces, I went to a titanium cook pot, plus this Soto Windmaster. This thing is pretty sweet. It's very efficient, I've found. I've played with it a lot. I used this most of last year, and very efficient and burns well. It turns down to a kind of a light orange flame, or rip it up to a hot blue flame. So I really like that feature. It's not just a boil only type cook set. Let's see. I've got this little GOHUNT ammo wallet. Pretty slick little design, real simple. Put a dope chart in there if you want. What does it hold? 10 cartridges. So yeah, we make an orange one too that I used last year, and somehow I lost the orange one. Don't ask me how. Now I'm down to the green one. Okay, water. Hydro pack, water bladders, game time decision depending on the area we go into. Oftentimes in the spring, water isn't a big issue unless we're climbing to the top and we've had an earlier snow melt than usual, and we don't have snow to boil. But these Hydro Pack water bladders, you got a 3 liter, a 4 liter. I just either take away one or add more, depending on the hunt that I'm going to be on, the area that we're going into. I typically always have at least 2, the 3 liter and the 4 liter. But this material they use is surprisingly durable. I just don't get holes in that thing. So it's a legit way to carry water. As far as the water bottle, I've talked about this a lot. It's the GSI Microlight. It's extremely lightweight for what it looks like, but it's insulated and stainless, so it keeps everything warm if you want it to be warm, but more important on those hot days, it keeps everything extremely cold. If you filled up at the creek, it stays cold all day. So big fan of that. Let's see, forgot about the bino harness. Pretty simple. It's my system. It's just the Stone Glacier bino harness. Love this thing. It's been great. It's very lightweight, very minimal. It's got a couple of side pockets for ear protection, which are just a couple of molded earpieces. It's like a 2-part putty, you kind of melt together, pop it in your ear, it molds to your ear. That's what I use. Real easy. Works great. And I shoot everything braked, so it's good to have. Wind checker is in here. Licenses are in here. Rangefinder is on the side. We're going into Grizz country. It's usually the only time I generally pack is if I'm going into Grizz country. If you're in Montana like we are, you're always in Grizz country, so you always pack it. But this is a Razco holster, which is slick, very easy, attaches to most bino harnesses pretty quickly. And I got a Smith & Wesson 10 mil on there with hard cast. Who knows if I'm ever gonna need it. I probably will at some point, but I shoot it well, I'm pretty comfortable with it, and I'm willing to pack it. So that's why I take it. All right, let's see. We've got a bunch of different kit sacks, as you can see up here. These are Sthealthy Hunter kit sacks. We sell these. I think they're great. They're kind of a 4-way stretch. They work great for a lot of different things. This one is just a drink mix bag. So I've got E-Charge, electrolytes in here. I've got my coffee, which is kind of a mix of I got some quick sticks, like instant Black Rifle stuff. I've also got some real coffee for those mornings. And then I carry a little GSI coffee filter, which is kind of dual purpose. You can use this thing if you're in some scuzzy water, you need to filter it. This thing is a very fine filter, and so it works good for that as well. But makes a really good cup of coffee in the morning. So drink bag, all the electrolytes and coffee I need for 10 days is right here. Again, this is everything for a 10-day hunt, which is what we typically do. And our first hunt that's coming up quickly is just that. This is my own medical bag kit. It's in red. We finally got the red version. It's in a even stretchier 4-way stretch. So everything you need is in this kit, from tourniquets to splints to wraps to gauze to band-aids, tweezers. Everything is in this kit that I've found that isn't going to set you back in the weight department. So it's 14 ounces, and it's pretty simple, but I feel like it's a big upgrade from what I used to take. It's still minimalist, but it's got everything that we feel like you would need in most situations. Here we've got our fire starter kit. I also keep a lot of my Gear Aid patch kit stuff in this with the fire starter. I don't know why. That's just where it's found its home. And then as far as fire, carry a couple Bic lighters. I carry a plasma torch. I carry a little thing of waterproof matches that I haven't used forever. As far as fire starter, I always recommend something like a S-bit. It's this thing burns in all conditions, and it burns hot. So even when you're in a place where all the small dry small twigs and everything is just wet, this will burn long enough to kind of warm it up and get it to burn and dry it off. So I use those a lot. Now they are on the heavier side, so I kind of combo those for when I need them, and then I just burn these, I think Bigfoot Bushcraft makes these little fire plugs. They're super lightweight. Again, you can drop this in a lake or whatever, and it's just always gonna burn. And again, it's super light. And those have been real good at getting the fires going in our stoves, even in real wet, humid, wet conditions. Those two comboed, and I can get a fire going anywhere. Kill kit is in our orange kit sack, very stretchy. You can actually fill this thing with a lot. First thing to come out is my knife. This is the chamois from Goat Knives. This is around my neck when we go in. It's just in here, so I know where it's at right now. This is one of their latest knives. I usually use the Nitro Tur, and I've used that as a neck knife for a very long time. But this chamois is really nice, kind of a beefed up version of that. And then my secondary knife is the Ibex. It's like 1.5 ounces. It's crazy light. Again, it's from Goat Knives. Love supporting these guys. They build really quality stuff, small business. And this is just a replaceable, classic replaceable blade knife, but I don't think you're gonna find any lighter than this. Spring bear, I always carry a couple of gallon Ziplocs. That's for if I'm lucky enough to take down a fat bear in the spring, which is like, the percentage is pretty low. Every once in a while though, like last year we took a bear that was just absolutely looked like a fall bear. And I like to put that fat in a bag like this, cool it off obviously, get it in something like this, keep it out of the game bags, it just makes a mess of them. And then this is something you can also sink in a creek if you double bag it and kind of keep that fat cool if you plan on rendering it down later. So that's something added to spring. Graxaw game bags, these things extremely light, very effective. We've used these for years. Cordage, I usually take about 100 feet at least. I've got multiple sets of cordage in here. I've got some of this slick line, which I use for certain places, and then just paracord type stuff for others. Often we're hunting in grizz country, so we have to hang a lot of things and hang them high. And so we, I pack a little bit extra paracord. I used to pack like 50 feet, and that just is never enough to get your food off the ground. And then if you got meat, you got to hang that. It's just never enough. So I go a lot more now than I used to. Got some replaceable blades in here. I've got some of the 70As, which are more of a rounded tip on your Havalon style replaceable blade. I like the 70As, and then of course the 60As are probably the most popular sharp tip blade. The only other thing I have in this kill kit is this little work sharp sharpener. That's for my neck blade that I can just put another edge on it if I need to. This thing's lightweight. I think it's the Work Sharp Benchmade model. And that's pretty much it for the kill kit. We've got our fire system for at night, which again, I recommend in most springtime conditions. We're gonna be dealing with wet conditions, often snowstorms, especially early in April. And I think it's worthwhile packing the weight to bring a stove in combination with your teepee. Stovepipe right here from Seek Outside, and this is a large U-turn Seek Outside stove, extremely lightweight. All this is well under 2 pounds, and comboed with the stovepipe. It's not that big of a hit, and it really is nice to have that on a lot of these spring trips. Now, one thing on the stove, I always recommend to everybody, because I get asked about length of stovepipe for a lot of different teepees, and I just always end up going about 6 inches or a foot longer than anyone recommends. I like to keep that stovepipe a little bit higher. Every foot you burn up 2 ounces of weight for every foot. I'll pack an extra 2 ounces to get that stovepipe sitting a little bit higher and above, so I don't get all the ash and sparks potentially settling on the teepee. All right, another piece that is kind of a game time decision. These micro spikes from Catula. Not every trip I pack these. Some trips we do. I didn't pack them on a trip last year, and I wish I had. Now, I've found these are really valuable even on some of my fall bear hunts that I'll do in coastal states. When like huckleberry brush gets wet and it all is laying down one way, it's really hard to traverse steep alpine country without micro spikes on. Same thing in the spring. We get a lot of wet conditions. We're hunting steep sided river drainages, a lot of rock, a lot of cliffs, a lot of moss. So these Catulas keep you upright and pretty effective. It's a little bit of a weight hit. They're about a pound. So yeah, you got to be willing to pack them. But man, I tell you, they really come in handy. These things aren't just for ice, but they really shine in the wet conditions. So wet alpine or just steep sided spring country. We had so many snowstorms come in last year that, you know, thankfully we had the tarp and all the rain gear and everything, but we screwed up and didn't have our micro spikes, which actually kept us from tackling some of the real steep stuff we wanted to get into. It was just a little bit too dangerous. And then conjunction with the fire, stove, all that, this is another thing that I don't always bring, but usually when I don't bring it, I wish I had. And that's this little pocket boy saw. It's pretty small, helps out a lot of times, you know, just even if it's just cutting a little lane to get prone in a position where you can shoot across canyon. That, or just working up a trail. You know, if you're the first guy in on a trail, these things come in handy. Buzzing up wood for the stove, very nice, especially when it's just pissing rain and it's really wet. These things are valuable to have with you. They're not that heavy, but to each his own on those. Insulated mug. This is a mug from Seek Outside. This thing's great. I don't always pack it, but I often do, and it's another one of those things when I don't pack it, I wish I had. So that's a nice insulated little cup for coffee in the morning. Trekking poles. I stick with these Peaks trekking poles. These things are legit. I use these a lot. I use them with the tarp. I use them for the steep country. I use them for going up and down in the steep country. Really nice when you got a heavy load on your back, but especially nice as well for setting up that tarp in the those rainy conditions. Let's talk about some optics. As far as the optics that are in the bino harness here, another game time decision. It's either 10s or 12s, depending on the country I'm going into. You know, if it's a little bit more confined, a little bit closer type country, cross canyon type stuff, I'm probably going to go with the 10s. If it's a lot more wide open and I'm looking for from long distances, I generally go with the 12s. I'm getting old and my eyes are getting bad too, so the 12s are nice. As far as what we're putting the binos on, this is a brand new piece of gear that I will be running this season. I've been playing with it this winter. This pan head is from a small company called Tricer. And this thing, I think everybody's experienced frustration with a lot of the pan heads that are out there. But man, this guy nailed it with this thing. It is legit. It's very smooth, extremely light. I want to say it's 4 or 5 ounces, somewhere in that realm. It's very light. And then comboed with his carbon tripod. Very unique. Now this is the tall version. He does a short version as well. But this thing, so you'll see it extends from the top, heavier on the bottom, skinnier on the top. This thing's very stable and extremely lightweight. This system, this is the tall version, which you can stand up and glass from. If you're one of those guys that wants it, it's above, I mean, Brady Miller could stand and glass off of this thing. You know, it's really, really a good tall setup. I'm probably gonna go with the shorter version. I'm usually glassing off my butt. So, but I would highly recommend checking this out. I've been waiting for somebody to build a little bit better tripod, and I think Tricer nailed it. Like I said, much more stable with the heavy part on the bottom, tapering up, extends from the top, comboed with this very smooth, extremely lightweight pan head, and yeah, this is a huge upgrade for me, for sure. So, optics that go on top of it for spring bear, typically what I'm doing is the tried and true running a 65 millimeter. I've ran this this old thing for a long time, and it's just a Vortex 60 millimeter or 65 millimeter. It's kind of a compromise from the 85. It's a compromise, a little bit beefed up from the 11 to 33. So this is kind of in the middle, willing to pack it. Usually I can tell how big the bear is by having this. Even a lot of these things are miles away. One thing I wanted to mention as well when I'm talking about this tri-head is I forgot. The other genius piece to this is you got an Arca Swiss piece right here. So you don't have to worry about different plates and things like that. In fact, my rifle now attaches right to it. It's got a rail on it, and you know, very stable as far as shooting off of it as well. So another benefit to this. And other than that, I think we can talk about, so we're getting ready to go in. My rifle cover, 6 to 7 ounces, somewhere in there. It's very lightweight. Keeps the optics covered, keeps the barrel from getting crud in it, and it's been very effective. I love this thing. So that's on every hunt. This is a, Weatherby came out with this last year. It's the 338 RPM. Sounds like a lot of gun. It's also in the Backcountry version, so it's extremely lightweight. This is a 6-pound setup right here. 6.5 pounds with it being scoped, which is crazy light for a 338. And you would think that that would really hurt to shoot it, but it doesn't. I ended up putting a 5-port TI Pro on there. You can get those on Rock Slide, and that thing, this thing, even being a 338 and a lightweight version, I have no issue shooting this thing. I actually really like shooting it. And I brought this to Alaska last year, took down a couple caribou and a moose. This year, I'm taking it into the Bear Woods, and I'm gonna use it as well. And a lot of that is because it is so dang light, and I'm willing to pack it. I run this lightweight bipod on here. This is from Spartan Precision. It is a Javelin Pro, and that's worked really well for me. It's on and off. It's just on a magnet, and again, something I'm willing to pack. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. Again, this is kind of what I would take. This is what I am gonna take. I'm heading out next week, and we're starting on the spring bear trips. And this is my setup. Some of these things, like I mentioned here, are game time decisions. I'll go one way or another, but this is kind of the gist of what I'm gonna be taking out. And then, yeah, we'll get a complete weight here at the end of the video as far as what this overall pack weight, when I hit the trailhead and it goes on my back, we'll have that listed below. So that's it. Wish you guys all the best on your spring bear trips. Good luck.